Hiya, well, as you know, weather's not very nice, and I think at this time of the year, it's good to sort of start preparing, doing a few bits of gear, doing a little things that are going to help you throughout the season. And just as I was sorting out a couple of reels here, I realised that in the last few weeks, I've had a lot of questions regarding braid and mono and which way to go. I think it's very important to say that you do tend to get used to certain styles. I got good friends of mine that like their braid, like if they can use braid direct, they just want to use it. That's what they do. They like the feel of braid, they like the control of braid, and really it'll take a big situation for them to change from braid. And again, likewise, I've got friends that really like mono. If they can get away with mono, they will use it because they feel there's certain benefits to it. So for you guys, first of all, you need to think about where you're fishing. If you're fishing on commercials, a lot of commercials braid isn't allowed, to be fair. And generally speaking, you're probably fishing for carp F1s. You've got these fish that really the only bite is very positive. You get that big pull round, and just having a bit of forgiveness in there with your mono is really important. You can get some benefits to your mono by changing it up a little bit. So for example, if I was fishing a long way out, I might use mono with a shock leader. I've got a couple of good examples here. So this is like an 018. That might be my main line because I've got something thin. That's £4, but I can't really cast off that. I need something stronger. So I've got some £8 026, which I might use as a shock leader. But anything I would say up to about 30 meters on a commercial, you won't go far wrong just using something like £8 direct 026, something really durable, really reliable. You're generally fishing quite heavy feeders, so I think that you can really sort of like get the reliability that you need by using a thick mono. I think once you start casting further, you will see the benefit to using thinner monos with a shock leader. And generally speaking on that, I'm looking at like 6 to 8 meters of shock leader, something that's just going to make sure I've got a few turns on the reel when I'm casting, so I can punch it nice and hard and get it out there. I don't think you want mega long shock leaders. You're literally just trying to do something to cast it off and then maybe playing fish under your feet. So I tend to go like 4 big arm spans, which not quite 2 meters an arm span. So you're probably talking about 7 meters, something like that. But when I'm thinking about that, that's what I've got in my mind. I think when you want to use braid, it certainly starts to look at more, say, natural type venues. So if you're going out and you're on maybe a deeper venue, you're fishing for skimmers, roach, bream, I believe there is a big advantage when it comes to using braid over mono. And that's really because you're in total control with braid. There's no big degree of stretch in it. I mean, take a sinking feeder mono, for example, you're looking at about 28% stretch, something like that. Even the lowest stretch monos will still be like 22, 23%, that sort of thing. So what you're going to get is you are going to get stretch. Braid has zero stretch, none. There's absolutely nothing. It is completely direct. So you can see, feel, pick up on your feeder, feel that fish, see every indication, see every single movement. But that comes with its own challenges because of course, as the fish are moving around your feeder, like trying to get at it, you're going to see all that on your tip. And sometimes the fish can sort of feel that resistance and it actually works against you. So there's like a few things to consider. Personally, I think if you're going to go with braid and start fishing braid, I found a real advantage actually fishing braid direct. And by that I mean not using a mono shock leader. So a lot of people, when they started, or traditionally, certainly in England, when you were fishing with braid, we might use like 8 meters of mono shock leader. And that shock leader is there to almost like give a little bit of forgiveness. It's like what we're used to casting off. But once you start using braid direct, you'll actually find that your cast is totally different. And by that I mean when you go to cast, again, there's no stretch, so you're feeling the rod compress. So you start to I actually find it a lot easier to cast when I'm using braid direct. Certainly I find like I'm just in control of the cast a little bit more. And I believe that when I'm reading the tip and I'm watching what's going on there, I know that I'm not going, is there a bit of stretch in the mono? You know, I'm not giving it any of that. It's like Braid Direct. So although there is an odd situation where I use a mono shock leader, I really have found like a Braid Direct works really well. And if I'm fishing with braid, I tend to go for like an 010. There's a school of thought that says if you go 08, which is like a really fine braid, you might gain a little bit of distance. I've tried using 012 before, like for a lot of my fishing. And again, there's a school of thought that says a little bit of a thicker braid is easier to use. I've got to be honest, for me it's 010. I'm literally putting 010 on, and unless I'm fishing more than about 60 meters, I'm not even using a thicker braid shock leader. If I'm fishing like 60 meters or more, I'll probably put like an 016 or an 018 braided shock leader on. And I do that by using the 4-turn water knot between the braids. And I just do that because I think that it takes a lot of hammer when you're casting out. But like, take this 010 braid, that's 15 pounds. So it's really strong, it's really durable. And you just don't need the extra knot in there. By having that like Braid Direct, it can work really nicely. And I would say if you're going out and fishing, you need to think about like what species you're fishing for, what sort of venue you're on, how far you're likely to cast. So for the people that ask me, you know, when should I use braid over mono, I would say, in all honesty, if you're casting more than about 30 meters, you will see a massive benefit using braid or Braid Direct in particular, because once you get to about 30 meters, the mono is going to be really stretchy. There's going to be a lot of like give in that mono. Unless I'm fishing for really big fish that are literally going to pull my rod off the rest, I just don't feel like I can see what's going on and feel what's going on when I pick up on the feeder. You know, when you pick up on a feeder at sort of 40 meters with just mono, there's almost that initial sensation of, oh, have I got a fish on? Oh yeah, it feels a bit heavier and the kicks are all being absorbed by the mono. And then it's, oh yeah, no, there's a fish on here. Whereas if you've got Braid Direct, as you pick up, you literally feel your feeder come up, and any fish, little like, it's like straight through your arm, you've got complete feel. And for me, that makes a big difference. I feel in control of everything a little bit more. So that's why I'm a massive advocate of using braid for any of those sorts of fishing. I think as well, obviously bite detection is fantastic. You do see bites, you know, very clearly. The caution I would give is just be careful, because sometimes with braid, you've got to remember there is literally no stretch. So your bites from fish that are actually hooked are generally much more positive. Slower or tiny little indications, they just tend to be fish around the feeder. Sometimes you won't even see those with mono. Like, you'll be sitting there and you'll just get like almost like a nice bite, and you'll think, oh yeah, that's on, and you'll pick up and it'll be on. So it depends, you know, you've got to be really on your rod, concentrating if you're going to do that. So general guidance, I would say commercial fishing, you're talking about mono, almost exclusively mono. And then if I was going on natural type venues, still waters, or anywhere where I was fishing over 30 meters in particular, I'm going Braid Direct. There is a school of thought that says I could probably get away with mono if I was fishing a bit closer. The problem is, I find it very difficult to almost go from mono to braid all at the same time. I feel when I'm fishing and I want to try fishing closer or further, just keeping my rods the same makes a big difference. The only time I might consider a mono shock leader, I have fished like Southfield Reservoir is a great example. Southfield's very shallow. It's literally like 4 foot deep, and all your bites are very positive. They're either big toe rounds or just a knock and your feeder drops back. And I've found a little bit that the braid makes it all very harsh, and the braid sort of almost coming off your rod makes it harsh. And I have found mono shock leaders just to give me a little bit of a cushion. So when the rod goes round, if it's violent, it's almost like that bit of stretch in the mono just helps it hook themselves. So if I'm on a very shallow venue where I feel like I can see the bites and everything's a bit more aggressive, I'll probably go for that mono shock leader. But if I'm on somewhere that's a little bit deeper, and what generally happens when it's deeper and your line's going down, as a fish sort of swims this way, your bites are a lot smaller. You need to be in control of your feeder more to get your rod up, especially if there's like weed or something like that. and Braid Direct can be absolutely fantastic, even for really big fish like bream and fish like that. So think about where you're going fishing. Like I said, if you're going fishing somewhere where you're fishing for those smaller fish, then you certainly want to be going down the braid route. I will say the style of feeder, you know, some people, this is obvious, but not for everybody. If you're method feeder fishing or anything like that, it's mono all the way. Anything with short hook lengths, you're going to get big positive bites. You actually need everything to be relaxed, and you need the fish to hook itself against almost like the spring of the mono. I know it sounds a bit weird, but like when you're trying to fish with braid, I've just found it far too aggressive. Even like when I go to places like Tamar, I'm using like an 8-meter mono shock leader just as a bit of a cushion when I'm trying to fish method and stuff like that, when we're fishing a bit further out, even for these smaller fish. So I actually think you could fish mono direct, to be fair, because I really do believe that the bites are that sort of like aggressive bite, and anything else, it can be detrimental to fish with braid. So I hope that's giving you a little bit of a guide. Like I say, generally I'm an 010 braid type of guy, but it's up to you what you want to use. Think about your thicknesses of your mono too. Like I say, I think like 026, like a thick mono for commercial fishing, is fantastic. But I think if you try to fish a little bit further, you're going to want that thinner mono to get the benefits of the cast with a thicker mono shock leader. So there's lots of things to think about. Think about, more importantly, the style of fishing that you're doing. That's going to help you make the right choice. So I think I'm going to go back to spooling a few rods up ready for the when the weather improves.